more brief. Okay, we got limited time. Introduce yourself.
I'm Carol Creasy.
I'm Jerry West. 10 years ago, next month, on 21st, April 21st, 1995, this was, Carol and I drove over to Springfield to see a concert. Long story short, we didn't do any drugs. Carol had one beer. I didn't, because I knew I was going to have to drive home later that night. We left the show early. It was at the Shrine Mosque in Springfield. It was a Dave Matthews concert. We had to leave early because both of us had to work the next day, even though it was a Friday night. On the way back out of Springfield, Carol fell asleep immediately right after we left town. And it was about 11, around 11:15, somewhere along in there. I was tired, fighting, trying to stay awake. I noticed three lights off to my left, which would have been south. When you're coming back to Joplin on 44, you're heading straight west. So to the south, I noticed three lights, and I just was waiting. In my mind, I was waiting for these lights to line up. I thought they were radio towers. I drove along for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes maybe, tops, and I noticed that the lights hadn't lined up, that they were actually moving along with me, along with the car. The situation was we were heading due west, and this thing that we eventually both saw was moving north by northwest. So if you imagine a straight line in front of you, and this thing is coming at an angle, it was keeping up with us, and at a certain point we finally got underneath it, but I'm getting ahead of myself. After I noticed that the lights weren't stationary, I started trying to adjust my eyes. I'm driving, so I'm going to keep an eye on the road. After I stared long enough, I noticed that the lights were attached to something. And at that point, I didn't really believe what I was seeing. So I woke Carol up. So I'll let you take over.
When Jerry woke me up, I was a little irritated because I was fast asleep, and he wanted me to look at these lights to see what, to try to figure out why they weren't lining up, because he explained that his drive to work every day, how he'd pass the radio lights, that they'd always line up after he got closer and closer. So I tried to get my vision in and didn't see anything at first strange about them, but finally noticed that they were gradually moving. And then when I noticed that the lights were connected, I pulled my body up forward and could clearly see, even though it was dark, that there was a mass, slate-looking mass that connected the dots, and it was all like in the shape of a pyramid.
I didn't say, when I woke Carol up, I didn't want to, for lack of a better way to phrase it, I didn't want to lead her because I didn't believe what I was seeing. I just asked her, I said, what is that? And my recollection is, at first she was a little PO'd that I woke her up, and she said, well, it's radio tower lights, basically, which is what I thought it was too. And I didn't say what I saw, and I let Carol look at it until her eyes adjusted. And at that point, what I saw was a giant pyramid. Now, when I say a pyramid, the reason I don't say triangle is because this was three-dimensional. A triangle, would make sense. There would be a light on each point. That's not what we saw. There was a light on one corner, a light at the top, and a light on another corner. And the way we were underneath this thing, this was massive. It was not small. It was huge. And I watched it for probably a couple of 3 minutes once I got my head around what I was seeing before I finally woke Carol up. And when neither one of us wanted to admit it, I said, well, what do you see? And she said, well, what do you see? I said, well, I see a giant pyramid. And she said,
Then we got pretty excited, and then it started moving. And then we could really see it moving across the road.
Well, I remember when we got, like I said, we're heading due west. And this thing's going north by northwest. When we got almost underneath it, to this point, Carol's like up in the dashboard. I'm trying to drive the car, and I probably weaved a few times, and I started to slow down. And when I slowed down, and I think I pulled off the shoulder, started to pull off the shoulder. At that point, whatever this thing was realized, or whoever was piloting it, realized that it had been spotted. And at that moment, it just, as if it was riding, like riding the gravitational grid is the only way I can explain it. It went just away at a tremendous amount of speed and disappeared.
With no sound.
With no sound. I've watched airplanes my whole life, and I cannot imagine how fast this thing moved. It would have had to have been a sonic boom. It was well over 700 miles an hour. It was just phenomenal the way that it moved away. And we drove on home that night and went back to work the next day, and we talked about it a few times and kind of filed it away, and it's the kind of thing that you never forget. And I wanted to get it on tape, because I've told the story a few times to some people without Carol's presence to back me up, and I wanted her to kind of confirm what we saw. Do you have anything you want to add?
It's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
So, we both saw a giant floating slate black pyramid. Another detail or two that I remember, because I focused on it a little bit longer before Carol woke up. Before I woke her up, it reminded me of pencil lead. Graphite pencil lead is dark, yet it's shiny. And to be clear about that night, it had rained earlier that day, and there were clouds in the sky, but there was also a full moon, or almost a full moon at that time, and so there was a silver luminescence. And once in a while, the clouds would thin out, or there was no clear sky, but they would thin out, and the moonlight would stream through it like a silvery light. So it took me a while to adjust to see this black. The first thing I made out was a triangle, triangular mass, and the more that I allowed myself to, my eyes off the road on this thing, I got it never wrecked, but I kept focusing in on it. I realized that this was a massive black slate-like pyramid. And after Carol woke up and got to focus in on it, she saw that too.
And we tried to guess how large it was, but we couldn't. It looked really, really large.
I will say this, and I don't know if it's right or not, but later in life, 10 years later, I flew on a 767 airplane, and those are big planes, and you could have fit 3 of those planes inside of the mass of this pyramid.
I think it's big as
It would have to have been from being underneath it. It's in the sky, so it's hard to tell. But a plane looks tiny in the sky. Granted, we were closer to this than an airplane in the distance, but it was massive. It was silent. There was no sound. The minute that I veered off the road, and I say this without being able to confirm with the pilot, but whatever was directing this thing, I feel, realized it had been spotted, because it instantly just motored away. I say motor, there was no noise, no sound, just as if it grabbed a hold of the electromagnetic field of the earth or something and just shot like an arrow, just away, like a vanishing point. extremely fast across 44 highway to the north by northwest. Haven't seen anything like that since. Don't think we were actually supposed to see it that night. Good enough? Okay. No markings.
No nothing, no protrusions.
No protrusions that we could see.